All right, guys. Here, Sam Mays here from Sellout Crowd to discuss the big Oklahoma State Cowboy victory over the Kansas State Wildcats tonight in Stillwater. Let me say this: I'm just thrilled that the fight is still there at Oklahoma State. I was so upset over the last couple of weeks looking at this team and just trying to figure out where that grit, that grind, that blue collar mentality has gone. Right? I mean, that's been the backbone of Oklahoma State football for as long as I can remember, at least from the time that I was a player to 2023. That's the one guarantee you were going to get is a bunch of kids that were going to scrap. They're going to show up, play 4 quarters of tough, hard-nosed football, win or lose. And I thought what we saw against South Alabama and Iowa State just wasn't that, right? Cowboy teams take the field. They look lackluster, like they weren't engaged. They look lackluster and unengaged on the sidelines. Also, this team just looked lost to me. Rumors floating around the program this week that Mike Gundy's lost the locker room, that Mike Gundy's lost the kids. They don't want to play for him. They don't want to fight for him. And I think all that gets put to rest as this team takes the field tonight and absolutely just puts foot to ass on a Kansas State Wildcat team that is notorious for showing up and just being gritty and wanting to get in a fist fight. I thought the Cowboys answered the call and they found a way to get it done over 4 quarters of fantastic play from both sides of the ball. You know, I think that the star here has got to be the Oklahoma State defense. You want to talk about Nicholas Martin, Cameron Epps. Those two played unbelievable games. Martin had 16, 17 tackles, I believe, a tackle for a loss, that interception in the 4th quarter. That was amazing for him to get out there and see. Epps was great. Apparently had an incredible week of practice with 7 interceptions, added 2 more tonight against Kansas State, which was epic. Now, look, I've got to mention this, and I know it's going to irritate some Oklahoma State fans, but Kansas State played like absolute hell today. They were terrible, discombobulated offensively, terrible on the defensive end, making mistakes left and right. It's almost like they saw the last 2 weeks of film for the Cowboys and thought, these guys ain't it, right? They're not good enough to beat us. They're not good enough to play against us. They aren't ready for Kansas State football. And Oklahoma State showed up out of a bye week like Mike Gundy traditionally does and played really well. I thought the Kansas State Wildcats really did overlook Oklahoma State. So shout out to the defense for being epic. I think the award for best unit on the field has got to go to that group. They were great for 4 quarters, set the tone early, hitting group tackles, wrapping guys up, bringing them down to the ground. Just a hard-nosed, great defensive effort by them across the board. Let's see. Looking at the Oklahoma State offense, some things that you have to acknowledge. Bowman, best game for him by far for the season. I want to say that him getting the ball out quickly, obviously, is something that they worked on during the bye week. You can really just kind of see the rhythm that he was in with his drop back. As soon as that back foot hit the ground, he was firing that football, whether he had a target that was open or he was throwing it away. He was getting it out of his hands, which is great, right? That's being super coachable and understanding some limitations with your offensive line up front, though. Those guys got better tonight. They were better in the run game, better in pass blocking, but they're still not very, very good. So Bowman getting the ball out quickly, little Texas Tech flair there, I think helped that offense significantly tonight, move the ball down the field. And he was great. Bowman, to me, maybe not the guy that, he's the guy that's going to throw the ball down the field. He's willing to get out there and play his game. And I think there's some reservations with Rangel. I think there's some reservations with Gundy. I think those are 2 very talented quarterbacks, and I could see why they had a quarterback battle this year. I will never understand why it went as long as it did by any means. I won't understand that. But I can acknowledge that those 2 players are on that same level as Bowman. I think the mentality from Bowman is let's just go out there and throw the football, though. And sometimes that's what you need, right? You need a quarterback that's just going to get out there and commit and just play the best game that he can get out there and play, whether it's throwing it to the other team or not. That kid's going to let that ball loose and do his very, very best. And he's a football player, right? He's a gamer, gritty. He wants to get out there and run. He's so awkward to watch run down the field because he's so big, but he'll fight. He'll fight for it. And I'm glad to see him grab the reins of this offense and become the leader. You could tell just that, the last week's start against Iowa State, the bye week coming into this week, everybody just seemed more cohesive, right? The offensive line's coming off the ball quicker, which is normal because they've had the same cadence over and over again. Receivers are used to the drop back, they're used to the kind of ball that's being thrown to them. So all this just helps the chemistry of the football team. They looked more cohesive tonight against Kansas State. Well, they have a guy, right? They have a number one quarterback now, and that's Alan Bowman, who by far had his best performance of the season. So good to see him go out there and compete at a high level. Ollie Gordon, bunch of touches, right? Every Oklahoma State fan that could speak was just yelling left and right, give Ollie Gordon the ball, give Ollie Gordon the ball. He is a special player. You saw him have some success in the last game against Iowa State. Tonight, I thought he was fantastic. He's a gritty, tough-nosed runner, big body kid, can be elusive when he needs to be, but he's going to just kind of lean on you for 4 quarters, and I would have loved the block for him. That's my favorite type of back. Reminds me a little bit of Seymour Shaw in that regards, where it's like, okay, here comes the big gun. He's going to hit the hole hard and lean forward, always fall forward. It's got plenty of speed. I think he's probably, if I had to look at, as far as the best, maybe potentially the best athlete on the field, I think he's in that top 5 conversation for sure. So good to see him get out there and get a bunch of touches. I thought the play calling was good also. It just seems like they needed that bye week to kind of figure some things out. And I think once they got dialed in, you saw Casey Dunn, I think, call a pretty good game. And they call a relatively aggressive game, which they should have. Oklahoma State had nothing to lose coming into this game. I picked the score of this to be 31-20 Kansas State. I thought the Cowboys would score, but I had no idea that they would be as effective as they were. And look, obviously they didn't score as many touchdowns as maybe you would have hoped to see them as far as the field position that they had. But special teams come through in a big way, and I think they had 5 field goals, and the kicker was great. Special teams was great, and this was just a big, giant, cohesive victory for Oklahoma State and exactly what they needed at this point in the season moving forward. I would have told you 2 weeks ago I couldn't find the next win in the season. I didn't know where the next win was coming. So to see them beat a Kansas State that's proven to be a pretty good football team this year was pretty good for the Pokes. So I'm excited, man. I'm excited that they kind of found their stride a little bit. Now I don't know what that means for the rest of the season. Some of you guys are so crazy on social media. Got people saying, that's it. We're going 10-2. We're going back to the Big 12 championship game. And I'm like, 3 weeks ago, this team was dead in the water. Everybody's panicking, and the program is on fire. And I still think there's some waves. Don't get it twisted. I mean, there's a bunch of good football teams in this league, and the Cowboys will face, is the bowl game possible? I don't know. We're going to have to figure that out if that's in their future. So, but definitely excited to see them come away with a win. I know people don't like these Friday night games, but in Stillwater, you're talking about one of the most passionate fan bases in all of college football. It was a packed stadium. It was a blackout. They're committed to their program. I thought it was a great college football scene. And if you guys remember, when Oklahoma State was coming out of the Les Miles era and they were trying to, Boone Pickens had just donated all that money, and there's this beautiful stadium, and you're starting to win games that they shouldn't win, and they're starting to get a little hype. What were they doing? Playing on Thursdays, right? Playing on Fridays. And it's the same thing that Oregon did for years, playing these off nights where college football fans and recruits around the country are paying attention, right? They're watching these games. They're excited about these games, having the stage to yourself. So I don't mind Friday night games for Oklahoma State. To me, it's all about building that Cowboy brand that has come a long ways in the last 12, 13, 14 years, from being relatively unknown to now everybody knows who Pistol Pete is, right? It's America's brightest orange. And, there's 30,000 people that tailgate in Stillwater. I mean, there's a whole bunch of teams, including that one down south, that wish they had a tailgate atmosphere like Oklahoma State. So there's a lot of things that are going in a really good direction for the Cowboy football program. They got to find a way to be consistent this year. They got to find a way to get to a relatively decent bowl, and they got to find a way to get that recruiting headed in the positive direction, whether that is committing more to NIL, committing more funds to recruiting, someone getting in Mike Gundy's face and demanding better results. You got top 25 facilities. You won a bunch of games. We're willing to do what it takes to get better athletes in here. Someone needs to get after them, but it all starts with this season, right? The Big 12 is changing. It's Oklahoma and Texas are leaving. There needs to be a new king of this league. And I would have told you 5 years ago that Gundy had set himself up to be that guy, right? Oklahoma State would have been the flagship school of the Big 12. When now I look around, I don't know that's the case, right? Because Coach Kleiman's got something to say about it. Old boy down there at Joey McGuire at Texas Tech's got something to say about it, that he's bringing in 5-star recruits and building his program. I know it's not off to a great start this season for him, but I promise you they're going to push hard for it. Great coach down there in Baylor. There's good coaches in this league, right? There's good football being played in this league. And when you add Coach Prime coming next year with Colorado, who everybody wants to crown already, this is not going to be an easy task for Mike Gundy. And you have to ask the question, does he want to be that guy going into this future Big 12? So I can honestly say that I am going to be thrilled to go to bed tonight, knowing that Oklahoma State won. I'm excited about the game tomorrow with Oklahoma and Texas. Looking forward to seeing how that plays out. I haven't decided what the score is going to be yet. I'll probably get on a live tomorrow morning around 9:00 and have a little pregame to talk about that. But should be a great weekend of college football. I will take some of you guys' questions and we'll get on out of here. Just a quick one tonight. Michael Lane, completely unexpected grit, came out ready to fight and prove something. Yeah, it was awesome. Like the rumors floating around the program about them losing those kids, you had to wonder if that was going to be the case, right? You had to wonder if they really did quit on Mike Gundy just based off of some of the lackluster looks you saw out of the program the last couple of weeks that they played against Alabama, South Alabama, and Iowa State. And to see them come out and play as committed as they did tonight was awesome, was special. And I think it lays all those questions in regards to Gundy and his ability to coach this team still to bed. So good to see that. Glenn Warshaw, OSU offense was good other than in the red zone. So that certainly has something to work on. And Glenn, honestly, a lot of that just comes down to your offensive line. You know, you start losing space there. As much as Mike Gundy's been excellent at spreading things out and having success that way, once you get down inside that 20, that it gets tight, right? And the reality is you want to be able to lean on your offensive line to just kind of ground and pound down there if you can. And they just don't have that right now. I don't know that they're going to have it. So that might be an issue they face all season long. Stephen G, the Big 12 conference makes absolutely zero sense to me this year. It's been pretty wild, right? And I think that ride is going to continue throughout the rest of the season, but I'm excited to be a part of it for sure. Honestly, I'm just excited that the Big 12 is going to survive the chaos that has been conference realignment. I'm happy to say that my grandkids will know that I played in the Big 12 and to be able to still watch it, you know, here in 10, 15 years. I'm excited about that. Cowpoke Ranch, his deep ball is pretty as hell. I mean, wow, that was impressive and how accurate it is. You know what? Bowman's got such an odd release. Like if you watch him, that back foot hits the ground and he's got this, like, it's like I think he's a big, powerful kid, but he's got this short, stocky release of the football and it just floats down the field and it was extremely accurate tonight. So I'm happy to see him look more comfortable. I mean, he's had some very successful games at Texas Tech. We all knew what his high end was, so we're hoping to see a little bit more of that, obviously, for the rest of the season here. Chris, nice for the breaks to go Pokes way. Nice for the other team to make stupid decisions. Nice gritty win. Still lots to work on, but a win is a win, and we needed it, no doubt. And yeah, and I said it earlier on Twitter, and some guy was like, oh, he hates Oklahoma State when I said the Kansas State playing like hell. They look terrible. I mean, they were bad for the entire game. They made Kansas State like mistakes all night, right? Bad snaps and bad throws and missed blocks. And it just wasn't a Kansas State team that you expected to show up. And I really do feel like they just took Oklahoma State lightly, right? You assess Iowa State as a bad team. South Alabama doesn't play in this league. They shouldn't have lost that game. So that makes people think that they're not good. There's nothing worse. I can tell you this from experience. There's nothing worse than watching 2 weeks of bad film on your opponent because it lulls you to sleep. It really does. Like you watch them lose a couple of games and you're like, oh, this team is not good. We got this, right? And you have that mentality going into the week of practice. You go to bed Friday night or Thursday night, in this case, thinking like that. And I think Iowa State slept on Oklahoma State, or Kansas State slept on Oklahoma State a bit. Let's see. Cowboy Ranch, we got to do everything we can do to keep him in Stillwater. I'm guessing you're talking about Ollie Gordon, and you're 100% right. Hopefully they can find a way to do that. The Kansas State offense choked that game away. Agreed. Sam, can you make sense of the Big 12? I cannot. I think it's been just a crazy season. And, at the end of the day, when the dust settles, it's about who figures out who they are the fastest. I think there's a bit of an identity crisis in the Big 12 right now, down in Baylor, down at Tech, here in Stillwater. Just a lot of moving parts, people trying to figure out, what the best version of themselves are. And I think a lot of this comes down to, my buddy Wes Sims and I were talking about this a few weeks ago in a live that we were doing. I think a lot of this comes down to, when I was playing, we would run like 1,500 live snaps in the fall camp. Same thing with spring ball. Like it was just there was a lot of one-on-one, good on good every single day. There was inside drill. We were getting live snaps every single day that we were in practice. I'm talking full speed, all in. Now it's just not the case. Trying to protect these kids a little bit more, which is good. It's a good thing that they're trying to make football a little safer when they can. And the only time to do that is in practice. So I get it, but I do think it is taken away from the preparation. So therefore we watch, one, two, three, maybe even four games of, teams trying to figure things out that they typically would have figured out by week 2 20 years ago. But now, there's no more 2-a-days. Like wrap your head around that. We had 3-a-days. Bob Simmons had us in 3-a-days at one point at Oklahoma State, and 3-a-days with 3 full padded practices, with 3 full live inside drills. Right now, there's 1 practice a day, and they're off the field. So, I mean, it's just a different world, and I think it's just taking a little time. Same thing with the NFL. I mean, we watch 4 just garbage weeks of NFL football every year, right? I mean, it takes the first quarter of the season for those teams to really get themselves going, especially along the line of scrimmage. So I think there's a little bit of that kind of creeping into this. So I think we all probably need to pump our brakes in regards to the way that we evaluate teams until we get done with like the first quarter of the season. You hope to survive it, as a coach and a fan base. Like obviously you don't want to lose games, but I think you're looking at week 5 as maybe that potentially the first week where teams maybe take the field hitting on all cylinders. I may have missed it, but how would you grade the O-line tonight? Oklahoma State's offensive line doesn't drive block. They set screens, right? And I'm not trying to diss those kids or talk bad about them. That's just the reality. They're not a bunch of dudes up there that are going to be overly physical. They're not going to knock guys off the line of scrimmage. They're not going to create just massive holes. It's going to take a little work, and I think Gundy unbelievably has been successful, I would say, for a decade now, dealing with offensive lines that are inconsistent and just not good. And so I would tell you that the expectation for me is for him to kind of figure it out again this year. I thought he did a little bit tonight, and Gordon they got big backs that run hard, and, they're going to find a way to get it done. But I think the best you're going to get out of that group for the entire season is probably a C, C minus, C performance for the entire year. Yeah, Mickey, only 1 TD. That's frustrating, but they converted. Kicking the special teams was good. I didn't watch this game tonight and think, oh wow, they figured out they're going to win 10 games. Yeah, I watched this game tonight and thought, well, that's one more that they can get underneath their belt to get to 6. That's kind of where I'm at with this. I think every single weekend is going to be an adventure. How did K-State get so bad so fast? I think Kansas State's a pretty good football team. I think they came in here and just overlooked Oklahoma State. Mickey Blue, nervous about this team. Who are they? I have no idea. No idea. This was a good performance. Great step in the right direction. Let's see if they can maintain some of this mentality headed into next week. Joseph, Bowman sucks. Bowman is what he is, and I think he's at this point, considering him hitting his stride a little bit, he's probably the best option Oklahoma State has. And, we all would have loved to see Spencer Sanders come back for his final year at Oklahoma State, but that's not the case. And so our guy is Alan Bowman. It is what it is. Any game you're excited for tomorrow? Definitely OU Texas. I took a lot of pride in the way that I take a lot of pride in the fact that I played against those teams in the early 2000s. They were deciding national championships, right, in that first weekend of October every single year. I played against 7, 8, 9 guys going to the NFL in Oklahoma's defense. Same thing on Texas's defense. I love this game. I think I'm going to miss it as far as flying the Big 12 flag over it, and it's unfortunate. Let's do a couple of more. Jeremiah Hurst, nice to hear you get to talk about your team with slightly lower blood pressure. Good win for you guys. Thanks, Jeremiah. Derek, do you think Bowman can clean up the quick slant game? I saw 2, 3 easy first downs that were just off target. Yeah, I mean, I think with time, he's going to figure it out. And Chris says Bowman's not great, but he did have a few drops, from receivers, and it wasn't a perfect performance across the board from that group either. But I think he's the most serviceable quarterback that Oklahoma State's got at this point. So not a bad performance from him tonight. And he wants to lead, right? And you could just tell that the team likes him. Guys warming up, patting him on the head and telling him good job. And there was excitement in that huddle, which was good to see surrounding Bowman. So he might not be the best quarterback in the league, but he's Oklahoma State's quarterback, and I'm just happy they have one moving forward for sure. What do you expect from the final Bedlam game with what you have seen from both OU and OSU? Uh, I think that OSU's ceiling is probably pretty close to what we saw tonight, right? It's going to take a little bit of finesse from the sidelines. It's going to take some good play from the quarterback position. It's going to be a tough, hard road to travel, I think, this entire season. I think that Oklahoma's ceiling we've yet to even really get close to. I think if the Sooners can come out and beat Texas this weekend, that team is pretty set up to get themselves to a Big 12 championship and potentially a semifinal game in which you might have to respect them a little more than you have in the last 10 years. So, I mean, if I had to pick the game now, I think Oklahoma is probably 14 points better than Oklahoma State. Do you think one of the Big 12 members can spoil a Red River rivalry part two? Those teams are looking like the two best. I don't. I think we're going to get a part two this season for sure. I can't imagine that anyone else steps up and outperforms one of those guys. So I think it's pretty much OU and Texas' league to win. So big thank you for you guys joining me tonight. I appreciate it. Pretty pumped. This former Cowboy is excited about the Oklahoma State win, and hopefully they can find a way to keep it going. I will be back live tomorrow morning, probably about 9:00. We'll do a quick just pregame as far as what I think that Oklahoma and Texas is going to be about, and we'll go from there. And I'll be live again after that game to discuss the outcome. So stick with me. I'm so happy to be back in the media again, covering sports. I love this stuff. I get to be here at my house and hang out with my family, watch games, and hop on and join you guys live after these games. So it's just a ton of fun. So big thank you to you guys for joining me, and we'll talk again soon. Thanks, guys.